Hello, thank you very much for everyone coming out tonight. It's the Late Late Toy Show, I think, tonight, so really appreciate the bums in the seats. We don't have free toys, but we have lots of free publications. There's one for everyone in the audience at the rear of the church. The minister made a point there saying that possibly Kells was selected because it needed the kickstart most. Kells was selected because we thought it would use it best. We thought that the community kind of participation, the interaction between the different groups was something very interesting, and it's something we wanted to support. Unfortunately, in the Heritage Council, we're quite a small organisation, so we can't really lead much because it's only barely a staff of 20 of us in the office in Kilkenny. But we really want to help people who want to help themselves. Over the last few months, we've been doing a fair bit of research about heritage-led regeneration and what makes a town great, and I just want to share with you some of the kind of preliminary findings first. Right. Kind of maybe I'm inspired by Donald Trump or something. What MAGA, make America great again, make towns great again. Kells is a great town. The country's full of great towns, but every town in the country is facing challenges, both from macro issues and micro issues. And really every town will have to kind of figure out what it can do, how it can react to those challenges. There's going to be some towns out there, regrettably, that will fail. But the key difference between the towns that will fail and those that will succeed is if the local community comes together and decides to do something about it. And decides to do something about it intelligently. Comes together, works hard over a number of years, creates a plan, sticks to that plan. It's not going to be easy. It's a tough thing to do. I think places like Clonakilty and Westport and County Mayo have shown the way forward. Both those places are on the edge of Europe, and both those places are thriving. They're thriving because the community has led a number of initiatives that have made sure that those places are great places in which to live, work, and visit. So, first things first, working together. I actually put it in bold, that actually the community should come together, create a town team where the community sector, private sector, and public sector work together. A big issue we've discovered in a lot of towns is that there's a lack of empathy between different groups. Community sector feel as if no one listens to them. The private sector think that the public sector do nothing, and then the public sector think that the private sector have unrealistic expectations about what they can do. But it's interesting when you get people working together side by side, everyone realizes actually they all have common aims. And it's good to see that kind of mutual understanding develop. And that's very important, because then you can understand what you can do or what you can't do. And that lessens conflict. And it creates initiatives that are actually, for the betterment of the town and the townspeople. It's important to have a plan-driven approach. Westport in County Mayo, essentially they spent 2 or 3 years devising their non-statutory document, which is their main kind of plan, which is, I think was for the millennium. They created this plan that would drive the town forward for the next generation around the year 2000. They're still implementing that plan. And Westport in the 80s was a town quite like any other town around the country. But again, local leadership, community groups working with the public sector and the private sector decided to make a change. And it took 15, 20 years to make a really kind of impactful change upon the town, to where what is now, it is now considered the best place in which to live in Ireland. But that didn't happen overnight. When you're doing a plan, it's a very tough thing to do in Ireland. We don't like kind of thinking about ourselves deeply and actually honestly appraising our own strengths and weaknesses, but that's a very tough and very important thing to do. If you cannot ascertain what's going well and what's going badly for your town, and what are the true challenges that you can actually overcome yourself, you cannot create actions that actually are going to solve those problems. It's quite a tough thing to do, but it's incredibly important thing to do. Often I think about failure, because I've failed a number of times in my professional and personal life, and usually with failure, you failed not at the end of the process, you fail at the start of the process. And all you do is that you just expend a lot of energy towards that inevitable failure. If you create a good community-driven plan that has got appropriate actions, ambitious actions, but are actions that are actually appropriate for what you can do, you're more likely to succeed. And again, stick to the plan. Do not deviate from that plan. And again, realize that it's going to take 5, 10, 15 years. I know it's tough, but that's what happens. There's a lot of things that can be done in the local authority level. For instance, there has to be strong long-term planning as regards what the town should be like in 5, 10, 15 years' time. And they can be unpleasant decisions. It's a common thing that towns that are not doing well, town centres that are not doing well, have large edge-of-town retail centres. It's a common thing, over and over and over again. So don't build it. Oftentimes I've seen towns that are struggling to create massively complex urban regeneration plans that one line would actually, a one-pager would actually fulfill, close down the out-of-town shopping centre, effectively. That's the root of a lot of the problems. Other issues are keeping services in the towns, making sure your schools stay in the towns, make sure your doctors stay in the towns, make sure your playgrounds stay in the towns. This is what brings life. It's very easy to actually put these things on the edge of towns, which are convenient for cars. Human beings are two things. We're efficient and lazy, and the car is the perfect vehicle for both those things. But it takes strong leadership to make sure that actually we keep those services in the towns. I know it's tough on an individual basis, but communally all these things add up and you create a better place in which to live in. It's essential that the community and private sector engage on a fundamental level. The private sector cannot go off and do its own thing. The community sector cannot go off and do its own thing. Oftentimes they're working in parallel. Oftentimes they're working against each other. They don't even know they are. So that cooperation is essential. And awareness of funding opportunities. You need to know what funding is out there. Unfortunately, in Ireland, we keep on chopping and changing our funding opportunities every year. But there are organisations like the Circle and people in your local authority as well that actually know what's going on and can give appropriate advice on what are the opportunities that are available out there. Having the right retail offering is core of making a town successful, and making sure that your town is considered as a tourist attraction. That you just don't think that if you build one big thing, that'll be that'll draw in all the tourists. A lot of times tourists, they want the simple experiences that are unique to Ireland, like playing hurling, going to a session, tasting local craft beer. A lot of these things don't cost much to actually develop, but these are the experiences that people want. In the Rock of Cashel, for instance, they get over 250,000 people every year, but the benefit for the town is only marginal, partially because they have a huge car park right beside the Rock of Cashel. People park, pay to park, and they get out. A similar thing happens in Trim-Cashel as well, that actually Trim is not getting the benefit that it should from the castle because it has a pay-for car park right beside the castle that you're limited to staying in. This does not encourage people to stay in that town. You're better off having a multitude of small little experiences that people want to do. And of course, if one or two fail, it's not a big issue, because one or two things will come up and take their place. Another thing is for towns to actually not just look into themselves. They have to look for partnership with other towns and the wider region and and even internationally as well. You're not in it alone. Every town is unique, but the problems Kells is facing aren't unique. They're being faced by towns across the country and internationally as well, in the UK, in Spain, in France. So connect with those towns, learn from each other, and you'll actually mutually benefit. Right, here we go. This is the town kickstart. This is our pilot we're doing this year. For us, we're spending a fair amount of money. Probably this year, this year we're spending, Heritage Council are spending maybe 60 or 70 grand, and that's being matched by Meath County Council. And in fairness, there's a lot of local homeowners here who actually are putting money into the projects themselves. So what we've done, I would like to say, if I was intelligent, that we were inspired by the Book of Kells and the Celtic interlace, and that everything interacts and moves together, and you have a beautiful kind of final product. But that's not necessarily the case. So the first things first, we have a regeneration plan, this is part of the process, a community-led regeneration plan. Then what we're doing in the town, in the middle of the town centre, we're doing facade works to 24, 25 structures right in the middle of the town. Public realm works are very important for making a town a pleasant place in which to be in. But that is not just the paving. It's also the vertical. the facades. So we're doing a paint scheme, we're conserving chimneys, we're conserving windows, ridge tiles. We're making sure these places are actually habitable. We're not spending that much money, but if you do maintenance and this kind of conservation work every year, every few years, you reduce the risk of having to spend a lot of money down the line for doing major major conservation work. And conservation construction funding is the most economically advantageous construction expenditure in Ireland, because you're using local materials, you're using local labour, you're not bringing in as much foreign materials, so it gives the best bang for the buck economically in an area where you actually focus on doing conservation rather than new build. So we're also doing training for locals about how to actually maintain their homes. That'll be in the new year. I'm sure everyone here will be at that training day. And we're also doing training for the retailers about how to become better retailers. That's essential. You can't just say, please come into my store or shop. Sorry, that was Americanism there, store. I shouldn't use that. So they need better training to become better retailers that will actually make sure they have a higher level of service, that they actually give the customer what they want. We're also going to be doing ongoing community support. So we actually, every year we have a training program, and we're inviting people from Kells to actually take part in that training program. And we ourselves, myself and my colleague Holly, will be giving ongoing support as regards funding opportunities and other kind of training opportunities that are out there. And next year and the year after next, we're going to follow up with more funding. The idea of the kickstart is to really just kind of, again, is to give you guys that initial burst of information and kind of self-belief and funding to do something interesting with your town. We don't have enough money to actually sustain it, unfortunately. We can only kind of, again, start it off. And we'll help out as much as we can in ongoing years. But really, it's up to you guys, with the support of us and other government agencies, to actually maintain that momentum. And judging by the turnout here, there's like 70 people here on a cold Friday night. I'm sure Kells will be successful in the long term. Thank you very much.